of Mr. Boki, our Principal Policy Analyst, to brief the Council.
Thank you, Chair Hitchin, Paul Boki, Council staff. You have in front of you a resolution adopting your preliminary 2026-2027 biennial budget priorities. Of course, we've had a number of committees of the whole. We've also had staff has had a lot of discussions with individual members. And so we've put together in Exhibit A your priority list. This resolution outlines the Council's priorities for the 26-27 biennial budget and formally requests the Executive to incorporate them into the proposed budget. It also asks the Executive to identify investments aligned with those priorities. Intended as an informational and communicative tool, the resolution promotes transparency and early engagement to help ensure the proposed budget is responsive to Council goals and minimize the need for amendments. The identified priorities reflect Council discussions held during retreats and study sessions. They represent a focused subset of broader policy goals, emphasizing those most relevant to the 26-27 budget process. Now, in the general budget development priorities are to preserve core functions of county government, safeguard the long-term health of the general fund, conduct a comprehensive review of fees, and limit the use of general fund balance to non-recurring expenditures. There's also strategic areas for investment in housing and homelessness, public safety, education and workforce, economic growth and infrastructure, environment and climate, and community building. And those are outlined, there are more specifics actually in an Exhibit A to the resolution. And it has those. This was given a due pass recommendation at the July 28, 2025 Rules and Operations Committee meeting.
Thank you for briefing this out. We spent quite a bit of time initially just figuring out what our priorities were as a council for this year, and then the lens of when we think about the next biennial budget, what those principal priorities would be that are related to a fiscal, because we always have policy priorities, but one of the biggest policy adoptions that we do as a council is our budget. And so we wanted to make sure that priorities that we highlighted for adoption and publicly sharing, again, these are things that came from blending and I guess blending and braiding ideas that came in during our many meetings that we had on this. So looking to my colleagues to see if anyone has questions, and I guess a question for council members if we wanted to go over or share publicly the exhibit so people could see it and hear it. I feel like we should, but I'm only one member. So Vice Chair Herrera?
Yes, Chair, okay, there we go. This question on the part in there that's in there about the fees, about looking at fees. Some people might go, whoa, this is a tough time to be increasing fees on folks. Can we explain to the public a little bit about that?
To clarify, you're speaking of general principles number 3 on...
Correct, sorry, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure we were talking about the same thing. Mr. Boki, are you willing to field that one?
Yes, absolutely. So first I'll read what is in the priorities document in Exhibit A, and it is number 3. High inflation has led to higher operating costs throughout Pierce County government. Many county activities are funded in whole or in part by fees. To help maintain core government functions and services, a comprehensive review of service fees should be conducted and changes should be included with the biennial budget. Requests for fee increases should be accompanied by a financial justification of the request and information on how cases of financial hardship will be handled. So fees are throughout the budget, not just in the general fund, but within the general fund, there's parks fees, there's fees on any number of things when you go get things at the auditor's office, just dozens and dozens of fees. And then when you get into special revenue funds, the building and development fund, which is something you've talked about in regards to the supplemental budget, which is supposed to be 100% fees supported and is no longer being able to do that. There are other fees throughout county government. You've seen a lot of them. And much of them are just user fees, correct? As services performed and the services paid for. The cost of doing business has increased for county government, and we've had fairly high inflation over the last few years, and that shows in just the cost of providing services. And you've seen that with the Building and Development Fund. So wage, salaries, cost of living adjustments for staff has run in the neighborhood of 3 or 4% a year. You can also, you've got retirement, you've got medical costs, you've got dental costs, you've got all these other costs that have gone up. And just in general, the cost of providing those services has gone up. So this is the council's way of saying that they would like the executive to look at those fees and take a look at them. Now, having said that, you were going to get every 2 years, now that we're on a 2-year budget cycle, we usually get a number of fee ordinances anyway, right? So we probably didn't have to ask, but I think the council is calling it out specifically that you understand that the cost of doing business and providing these fee-related services has gone up, and that you would like to get closer to a better cost recovery out of those.
So, and more specifically, this is just asking to take a look what right looks like for now.
Yep.
Is some of the calculation in that, I mean, of course, we have inflation, we know about that, but the economy and then building in particular, building permits, we're not building as much as we were in a very robust economy. Does that have effect a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. If there was more volume, you would be closer to break even.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the comments. Are there other comments on the overarching? So I know that we have spent a lot of time with this. Oh, Councilmember Krueger.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just, I've been contemplating going over this because I'm looking for goodness and for proper role of government and what the expectations are of tax dollars. And I was just a little concerned on so much focus on fixing things instead of, generating the revenue to be able to have the money to fix things. And so that as I was going through it, I was hoping for more protection in terms of our sheriff's department to have the manpower out there to, to have the forces to protect the citizens from crime, things that are going on. And for the, I want to say there's more on diversion versus penalties for choices made, where a person is held to account for choices that were made. And that is time that can be spent in thinking about what has to happen to change so they don't have that penalty to pay. And then again, I'm saying, a little bit more addressing in bumping up the economy, which in order to address a lot of the costs of living going up, looking at the cost of regulation that are on the businesses that are creating a lot of the inflation. And then I guess maybe a little more focus on the parks, because I think people are looking for respite for the hard work and the taxes that they pay to have a place to go to take their family. A lot of these things are really nice to have. We like for the economic growth, supporting business, childcare. Childcare is a big expense, and I just have to look at what is the role of the individual, the role of the family, the role of the government, and how these all fit together. I just was a little concerned that this was more into spending policy as opposed to prioritizing the things that can pay for the services that we want. So that's just was kind of my concerns in looking at the 7 areas. Not that they're bad areas and not that they're not needed to look at. I just was kind of hoping a little more focus on prosperity. So that's just some of the comments I had. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your comments. We'll go to Councilmember Yambe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to appreciate the comment made so far. I do want to touch on the public safety portion because I'm reading it. It says improve law enforcement capacity and community safety, which is hiring new officers, which is talking about putting resources in there. I think that we're hampered by our limited ability to access state monies, which are been dedicated by the state government to agencies who are complying with state law. So I feel like, we're doing the best that we can here in talking about investments in, trying to address further the symptoms of what we have and doing the best that we can. We've tried to hire more officers, and we have this majority council and councils previous have devoted the money necessary to fund some of these positions, but we've had very difficult time hiring, competing with some of their agencies. And so, I'm starting to look at, well, what can we do beyond, the obvious? What can we make investments in to really address further issues that we can address as a council and fund where we have oversight, since we have limited abilities to provide oversight over another elected office. And I think that we're doing a pretty decent job in trying to do the best that we can with what we have at the moment. I think that this was very thoughtful on these things, and if we have good ideas to add to these, that we've had many opportunities to say, hey, we should consider this, we should consider that. So I think that this is a pretty good culmination of all our discussions and having this. Now, if we are to invest further in law enforcement capacity and community safety, then we should also talk about funding more of the courts and funding more of the jail in order to house the people who we do bring into our system and then put them to the court, because in the long term, and what Council President Hitchen and I went in our listening session in District 5 and 6 for budget listening, it was made very clear that people want more law enforcement to enforce the laws on the books, but then there was a hesitancy in doing the investment in the prosecutor's office and the judiciary, and those are all important things, components of what you do when you are enforcing the law. And so, yes, you can, book somebody, but then you can't charge them afterwards, and you have to put them back out in the street. And so, we're doing, pretty good investments in what we can with what resources and oversight that we can. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into this. And if there's any other good new ideas, then please let me know. But yeah, I hear it, I understand it, I've dealt with this, and I think that given the multiple branches of government that are involved here, we're doing the best that we can. And so I appreciate the opportunity to bring that point up. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Yambe. We will go to Vice Chair Herrera.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me speak again. Just talking about all this. I mean, this was a lot of input was put into this. And, we're in Washington State, and we're kind of, you look at other counties across the country, and they're not dealing with what we're dealing right now, is where we might have some backfilling to do. So this biennial budget priorities for the council is very important. It's a kind of a steering mechanism of how we move forward. And in it, it talks about our main budget priority is to maintain our core functions. And that is in here, and we have to stick to that because, again, we're in Washington State, and we are where we are, and we may have to backfill some of those core functions. We've talked about many of these before this. Each council member had to, bring some of their ideas put forth. Those ideas are in here. But again, we have to move forward of how we move forward with this document. Again, it talks about our core functions, or what I think is most important. So just want to talk about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councilmember Ayala.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. I want to take a moment and just thank all the staff that have been with us for hours and hours and meetings, listening to these priorities that we've discussed, that and going through the several iterations of what is now before us. I think Councilmember Herrera's comment around this being a steering mechanism is something that resonates a lot with me. And I recall in one of our meetings, we discussed making sure that we have this document and passing it through resolution limits the back and forth that we have to do in the later months and in our relationship with the executive, because this would then direct them to say, hey, come negotiation time, these are the priorities that we're holding to. And so if the balanced budget that is presented to us does not reflect these priorities, we then have precedent to say, we're going to significantly change what is presented to us. So for me, this is not a comprehensive list. It really is that steering mechanism. And I think it is what will allow us to lay the skeleton that we then build upon. And so I appreciate having gone through this opportunity and hearing all of our colleagues' perspective and how they represent their own district, and hope that we can move this along so we can have more robust and detailed conversations in the next few months. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Ayala. Councilmember Krueger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just, to reiterate, I don't disagree with Councilmember Yombe. I think we do what we can with our police force, and yes, we are limited, and it is a package deal in order to have the courts, the jail, and the sheriff's department. I agree with Councilmember Herrera on the general principles. I think they're good. Perhaps what makes a flag go up for me is how we defined in the potential investments in the different areas, because the 7 areas are, I guess I would say, basic in doing that. And perhaps there may be too many things that are pointed out in potential investments where we would have a little more leeway in interpreting, or because this is saying that the way I'm looking at it, say for potential investment under economic growth, there are 4 listed. Does that mean if a 5th one comes in, it doesn't get a priority, even though maybe it would be more important because it's not on this list? This is, I think this may be too confining by having that much more definition on these 7 areas. But I can also applaud the work that went into this. It wasn't something that just happened like, whipping it out. So it's quite the document. So thank you.
Thank you. And I will also add, we edited and reduced and refined because this was a much longer document. So thank you. Can I ask that we put up page 2 of Exhibit A, please? Is that reasonable? So just for members of the public, you've heard council members allude to and staff talk about primary investments, potential investments, and the teacher in me wants to make sure that the public kind of understands like what happened here. So we had a really long list of items in several areas, these 7 key areas, and we had to kind of decide how would we communicate to the executive and the executive department around really what are the things that we are wholeheartedly like, these are things we are going to be looking for. And then what are things that like, we think these are important, but we understand right now the fiscal outlook in our county and in our state are kind of troublesome. So knowing that, we didn't want to make, a giant list like that was like everything in the kitchen sink. So we really identified primary investments. So I'm putting up the public safety one. The overarching theme here is to improve law enforcement capacity and community safety, invest in violence prevention and diversion programs or efforts. Primarily done, so these are things we're going to be looking for, meeting the new indigent, the word I can never say, defense caseload standards. The council wants to maintain funding for intimate partner violence through the Crystal Judson Family Justice Center, continue the hiring incentives for the sheriff's law enforcement and corrections employees. That's been funded for the last 4 years through ARPA, and ARPA predominantly is spent. And so by saying this, we're saying, okay, executive, this is something that we think is working. We need to find another source of revenue. And then backfilling, should we lose grant dollars that are going to the sheriff's office, prosecuting attorney, or superior court? So if we have our therapeutic courts that work with prosecuting attorneys to help community members that are justice involved and also have like a behavioral health or substance use disorder, we wanted them to know that if we had grant dollars at the federal level, if it makes sense, we think those are important for public safety. And we are willing to think about how could we fill those should grant dollars go away. So then you go to potential investments. So we don't know what the cost would be, but if we could speed up the hiring process, we think that's a really important thing. But if that cost a whole lot of money, I wouldn't put that in a primary. And that was kind of how this document was put together. And I just wanted to kind of make sure that the public saw kind of the nuance there. Several of these topic areas we didn't have primary. Example is economic growth and infrastructure. That doesn't mean we're going to be looking for the economic department to be not in the budget. Like, it will be there, and it will have the staff, and they will have programmings, and they will have things, but we couldn't identify a primary, like, we are expecting, really hoping to see this in the budget as a group in this document. There are things that we all like really think are good, but they didn't quite get to the level of, we really think this should be there. So again, wanted the community and any staff from the executive side or county staff that are listening to understand kind of how to read this. So we can go ahead and take the screen share down. Thank you, Mr. Weinsberry, for helping with that. Are there any other questions? And Mr. Taylor, I saw you come to the podium, and I wasn't sure if you came because you were helping with.
Just preparing for public comment, Chair.
Perfect. I love the team effort here. Okay. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we are going to open up these for public comment on Resolution 2025-181. I know we have several members of the public in chambers, so we will start there. And again, we apologize for not being there in person. We can see you and we can hear you. And I can't call on people because I don't have a sign-in list. So again, you're only commenting on this, and I'm going to let staff kind of help me get people to speak.
Ken Paulson. I was looking at, I didn't come here to talk about this, but I read this and I thought I would throw in my 2 cents. Support affordable housing. And somewhere around 6 months ago, I was at an in-district Pierce County Council meeting, and you had the housing somebody agency giving a presentation about how many different buildings they help build. And the last one, my recollection was somewhere around $80 million it cost. And based on the number of units, each unit cost 500,000 something. And they were always using the phrase affordable housing during this whole presentation. And I'm like thinking, wow, how's that affordable? So my comment is, you have number 4 under potential investments, support affordable housing on county-owned property in Frederickson, which I think is probably pretty valuable. And I don't think it would be a good idea to put permanent housing on it, but you could put tiny houses on it, on trailers that can move away if you did the right infrastructure. And I say that because those can be built in a factory with quality standards. And I have seen on the internet all kinds of tiny houses, and I hear the cost $75,000, $100,000, $125,000. And it's possible that somebody who's starting out, instead of paying a minimum studio rent of $1,500 a month for some places, according to, they could actually own something. And then when they got a job somewhere else, they take it with them. And it frees up a slot. And then you do another tiny house there on trailers that's trailable, movable. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good afternoon. Weird, that's how you got it. My name is Andrea Blue, and I am the president and CEO of Making a Difference Foundation. Our mission is to make a difference in people's lives, one person at a time. We do that through providing housing, food access, and educational scholarships. We are the proud owners of Eloise Cooking Pot Food Bank, which is the largest food bank here in Pierce County, serving over 80,000 people per month, distributing about 1.7 million pounds of food per month. We are deeply grateful for the support the council has provided, especially during COVID-19 of Eloise. Without that support, Eloise would not still be serving people today, so thank you. But today I come here before you to share a growing crisis that threaten the core of our community. The devastating impact of SNAP cuts and escalating food insecurity in Pierce County. Currently, over 11% of Pierce County residents, nearly 100,000, are food insecure. That includes 1 in 6 children and tens of thousands of low-income seniors. These are not just statistics. These are real lives, real families, our neighbors facing empty pantries and impossible choices between food, rent, and medicine. At Eloise, we've seen a 16% surge in the demand over the last 6 months. In the last year, since January 2025, we have served over 27,656 children, over 72,291 seniors. Simultaneously, we've lost over 750,000 in food supplies and have lost 1.3 million in financial support. Let's be clear. SNAP is not a handout, it's a hand up. When it got cut, the burden doesn't disappear. It simply shifts to organizations like ours. For a child, that means trying to learn on an empty stomach. For a senior, it means choosing between medication or buying groceries. For working parents, it means skipping meals so that their kids can eat. So I urge the council to continue to support food, and we're thankful for the support in which you've given.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Hi, my name is Claire Eichen, and I'm the Development Director at Emergency Food Network. We work with over 75 food pantries, meal sites, and shelters across Pierce County, including Eloise's Cooking Pot. And I'm here to just thank Council for including food as a priority within this document and strongly advocate for continuing to support food at the levels that are necessary to meet this unprecedented need that we're seeing in Pierce County. The Washington State Department of Agriculture reported that in the 2024 fiscal year, 1 in 4 Washingtonians visited a food pantry, and we are seeing that here in Pierce County. Our network served over 3 million visits in 2024, and in 2025, we have seen a 17% increase in visits of seniors, adults, children going to food pantries. With those rates, all of us know somebody who's going to a food pantry if it's not ourselves going to a food pantry. Food is the most basic need and is also at the heart of all of these other initiatives that are within these budgetary goals. Employees can't focus at work and can't work well if they're hungry. Our young people can't focus on school and learn well and get a good education that allows them to get a well-paying job one day if they're hungry. It is truly something that builds communities, makes our communities safer, makes our communities healthier, and is so important to continue to invest in. The oncoming cuts to SNAP are going to send even more families to food pantries at a time when we're seeing cuts to federal food assistance, to federal food coming into the system. So it is critical that our local communities step up and support food so that no one in our community has to go hungry. No one has to decide whether they pay for housing or go hungry, pay for a medical bill or go hungry, or lose access to transportation that keeps them employed, keeps them going to school or going hungry. So I just urge council and the executive to continue to support food and support the most basic need that our community members are facing day in and day out. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good afternoon. My name is Byron Allen. My day job is I am the business manager of IBEW Local 483 here in Tacoma. But one of my other roles that I serve is I am a board of director member for the Pierce County Emergency Food Network, the organization that Claire just spoke of. I echo everything that she has just said. We are entering a perfect storm when it comes to food insecurity with the cutbacks that are happening at both the federal level and also on the state level. We are having to step up even more so at the local level. Our organization, we represent labor unions throughout Pierce County, and we also work with businesses throughout Pierce County to do what we can to bring awareness to the food insecurities that are happening, to do everything we can to help to provide food and nourishment, because without that basic element, all of the other things that come into play, as far as public safety and education, all of those things fall apart if you have someone that is hungry. So again, want to thank the council for making this one of your priorities and advocate on its behalf. I would like to also say thank you to the council for recognizing August as an awareness month for addictions. I myself lost my son a year ago to addiction, and I understand the heartbreak that the family went through that was here before. I want to say thank you on behalf of our family for the recognition of that.
I'm sorry for your loss and thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else in chambers that wanted to address the council on this item?
At this time, we have no other people in chambers. And you want me to go to Zoom?
Yes, I do. I'm just waiting for somebody to mute one of the mics so we don't have the feedback, but that's okay. There we go. So we will go to Zoom.
Yes, for any members of the public who wish to provide comments on proposal number R2025-181, press the raise hand icon on Zoom or star 9 on your telephone keypad. And then, Madam Chair, at this time, looks like we have one hand. First name's Andrea. Please state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrea Hogue, and I live here in Tacoma's South End. I also chair the South End Neighborhood Council as well as the Community Council of Tacoma. And I wanted to express strong support for the inclusion of food distribution programs in the county's preliminary 2026-2027 budget priorities under Resolution R2025-181. I was grateful to see this investment named, especially in light of the impending closure of the Fred Meyer at South 72nd and Pacific, as this closure will also be felt beyond the Tacoma city limits. That store has long served as a critical access point for groceries in our area, and its loss will further deepen food insecurity in an already underserved community. As we brace for this closure, I urge you not only to maintain, but to reimagine our food distribution system, not only to reduce spending, but to increase the consistency of the distribution and the building of community. Let's strengthen collaboration between the county, city, community-based organizations, and neighborhood leaders to build a more resilient, responsive, and localized food access network, one that isn't dependent on large corporate retailers, but rooted in equity and sustainability. This is a moment to act boldly and creatively, and I thank you for recognizing that food access is not just about filling shelves, it's about supporting the health and dignity of every resident. Thank you very much. I give my time back.
Thank you for your comments.
Next, we have April Smith. Please state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is April Smith. I am a resident of the South End and I'm board member of the South End Neighborhood Council, and I am here to thank you for including food into your priorities. It's a necessary need for everybody in our community, and there's no reason that anyone should go hungry. So thank you for including this as one of your priorities.
Thank you for your comments.
And at this time, we have no other hands, Madam Chair.
With no other hands raised, we will close public comment and bring it back before the council. Are there any further comments before we call the roll? So, oh, we had one hand raised at the last minute. Enderlin, we've closed public comment on this, but you're calling on this item, the piece of legislation? Angelin, we are not hearing you. No one else is hearing her, right? It's not just me. Okay.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Now we can.
I'm having issues with the computer. It's something new, and I'm not on my usual computer. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak. But I did have a question aside from this real quick. So in terms of your agenda, you have public comment allowed for ordinances. And I thought that that's what we were part of what we were doing. And then there's also a community forum. So I have my my comment for community forum. Is that part of this as well?
That will be at the end of the meeting. So we are in the middle of adopting some legislation. So
okay, I just want to make sure.
And we'll come back to you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to my colleagues for your patience. I always want to just check. You never know. So before us, we have Resolution 2025-181. I just want to say thank you to each of you for doing the deep thinking about what really is needed. And some of you made had some things that you were very passionate about and said, okay, this isn't the biennial budget to go after things like that. Because we understand what's before us and we know the budget is going to be challenging this year. It's not ever easy, but it has, I think this year is going to be a little bit harder than the last couple of years, those of us that have been here through a couple cycles. And for those of us that are new, we understand. To the community members that here to speak about food, this is one of the things that I've continued to be hugely an advocate for, because you can't stay healthy. It's really hard to stay employed. It's really hard to learn, and it's really hard to just function when you are not getting enough food to sustain yourself. And parents and seniors and children struggling to get something to eat is something I feel shouldn't happen in the United States, and yet we know it does. And so I think this is one of the things that I will continue to press on. So appreciate my colleagues and staff for all their work on this. So before us is the adoption of R 2025-181. I'd like to ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Yambe.
Aye.
Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Krueger.
Let's try one more time, Councilmember Krueger.
Her votes aye.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ayala.
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin.
I vote aye as well.
You have 6 ayes, 0 nays.
With 6 ayes and 0 nays, the motion is adopted. Thank you again for all the work. We'll make sure this gets transmitted to the executives team, though several of them were on the call.